Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific Northwest, from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
Sweet, sweet Mariners. Let's go.
Spring training is getting ever closer, and the Mariners made a big swing, gave up some prospects and draft capital to go get a guy, and we're going to talk about that. And then I think that we're probably pretty darn close to what we're going to see this Mariners team rolling into spring with, barring some unforeseen free agent signing if the prices start to drop a little bit. So we're also going to talk about all of the inbound Mariners that were acquired via trade or via free agent signing, but they were actually like player trades, not cash or minor league deals or claimed off waivers. We're going to leave those guys alone, but give you some fun new nicknames that none of these guys have probably ever heard in their life. But I will probably call them that this entire year. But before we do that, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy who is actually pretty good at nicknames, true story. One time there was a person that was getting hired on to work. Me and another coworker made up a nickname before he even started working there. And that's all we ever called him. And that's all anyone at work ever called him. So I'm that good at building nicknames. So if you're looking for someone like that, you're looking for a guy like me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real _ Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy who is looking really dapper in a nice new beanie, ready, I can see the twinkle in his eye to talk about the Mariners today. And if you're looking for someone that has that youthful exuberance, you're looking for a guy like Cain.
So I'm Cain. You can find me over on Twitter at Cain2406, on YouTube at Cain06, TikTok and Kick, Cain0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
Another trade for the Mariners came across Sunday afternoon into the evening. You had shot me a text as I was coming back from, I didn't know this was a thing, a Valentine's Day party. Was at one of those with my daughter. And you sent me, oh, we got Gregory Santos. I'm like, who the hell is Gregory Santos? Because that's the thing, unless you have those guys that have been super elite or have played prominence in the postseason. Typically, you look at a bunch of these rosters. If you were to talk about Justin Topa, Gabe Spire, what he's done, Saucedo, Paul Sewald before the midpoint of last year, a lot of people are like, okay, that it looks like he has good numbers. I know nothing about this guy. And I would say with relievers, that's the big thing is you don't know until you really dive into them because you can find things that you like. You can find things that you hate about every single reliever in the league, I think. So we sent that across, started diving in, saw the package that was given up. So Mariners get Gregory Santos from the White Sox. They give up Prelander, Berea, Zach DeLoach, and a competitive B balance pick, which slots in at 69. So when you look at this, you gave up two players that were on the 40-man roster. Prelander was, are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you just laughing at 69th pick? Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Cool beans. But Prelander was on the 40-man, spent a little time with the big club last year, and you had Zach DeLoach that got promoted to the 40-man before the Rule 5 as they were worried about losing him, and they're giving up a draft pick. I think the big key in this one that the Mariners are giving up is Prelander. He was a guy that in 2022 kind of shot out of nowhere in the minors and just became a strikeout machine in single and double A. When he got with the big leagues, a little bit of control issues, not as effective in the bigs. So they sent him back down. And this was a guy that you kind of looked at to potentially be a fringe guy, probably starting in AAA, and being a piece of this bullpen for a good stretch of the year. So there was a lot of upside there and seen it. He's a pretty young guy, felt pretty good about what he did 2 years ago. Still a little up and down, but made it to the big club, looked all right in his couple of outings. And then you go to Zach Deloach. This is the guy that was taken, I believe, in the third round 4 or 5 years ago. He was a guy that profiled very well. I believe he's Texas A&M for his college ball, profiled pretty well coming up, then kind of hit a stall, kind of looking more and more like a fourth outfield type at best. Clubbed a bunch of homers in AAA, and you were kind of looking. This is potentially some insurance for Dom Canzone coming into the year. You trade him away as well. So when you're looking at the two guys on the 40 man, one that's on the cusp of making the big squad and a guy that you've seen a little taste, and they had to save Prelander the year before because they were scared that he was going to be taken in the Rule 5. Those are two pretty big names in the farm system.
Right. And with that, I was high on Deloach from what I saw last year. I thought he had a good shot at making the squad at some point this year. Don't really remember much about the other guy, honestly.
See, this is the thing. If you're not paying attention to relievers, you don't know what's going on. That's
Yeah,
welcome to
like
reliever
I
town.
I know who's on the big squad. I know what they do. Like,
He's
I'm
up
pretty
and down a
dialed
little
in
bit.
on that, right? But who they got in return, I think this dude is special. I
Yeah.
really do. Gregory Santos, one of the up and coming strong young relievers in this league. Out of most of the young relievers last year, I believe he was top five. Not in just overall relievers, just the young bucks. Probably throw Matt Brash in there, Andres Munoz, stuff like that. Those type of guys. So when you're getting a guy who is really, really effective, and he honestly could be in competition to get the closing job.
Yeah, I think that you're going to get to a point where you see what we saw with Scott Service a little bit earlier in his coaching career. We had Edwin Diaz when Edwin Diaz got shipped out. They kind of did closer by committee. And, until Seawald really snatched it at the beginning of last year, I mean, it was kind of like that in the years past. So when you look at that, I think he'll ride the hot hand a little bit. He'll be able to be more cognizant of rest because you have guys that can compete. But that's the thing about Santos. White Sox weren't in very many high leverage situations last year. Let's be honest. They were a dumpster fire, but this kid was a bright spot. Last year was technically his rookie year, even though he got some time in the bigs the previous 2 years. He had a total of 5 appearances in 2022 and 2021. But last year was the breakout. It's considered his rookie year. He appeared in, I didn't write it down. I think it was 60 games near there
Yes.
through he had a 2-2 record, 3.39 ERA, clocked with 5 saves through 66 and a third innings. He had 66 Ks and 17 walks.
You were correct. 60 games. You were correct.
And the one thing you see a lot of stuff coming out of the woodwork just by reading some articles and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that say by his underlying metrics that he is positioned to be a breakout candidate to be one of those all-star type relievers. I almost said receivers, but we're talking baseball, not football. Get out of here. And they're there, and he's got good stuff. He mainly is a sinker slider guy. He went from a four-seam fastball and went to the sinker. The sinker clocks in at, a resounding 98.8 miles per hour on the average.
Fastball. Oh, what does that fastball get to?
But the fastball, he throws a little bit slower and it doesn't have as much movement. So he recently switched. The fastball's still in there, but I think that with the Mariners, they're going to try to eliminate that even more and kind of get to that Paul Sewald where he had his four seam, he had his two seam, right? But one of them, the two seam, you could technically call a sinker. throw the four seam very sparingly and be a big slider guy. Well, slider averages 91.4 miles an hour. And the one thing I want to say, he did throw 103 miles an hour last
Yeah,
year
he
one time
he
on that.
flirts. He flirts with it. And oh baby, I love it.
And usually I'm not the biggest metrics guy. I don't care to know some of what these acronyms mean when it comes to pitching. There's things I look at. I know that a lot of the baseball geeks and a lot of statistician guys really dive into this, but I don't get it 100%. Maybe I'll get it at some point, but I'm a little bit more old school. So, but I did look at some underlying big key stats. The big one that I saw, his barrel rate was 1% last year. League average is 7 for a reliever, and he's at 1%. That's incredible.
Yes. Yes, it is. And honestly, out of this bullpen, that is something that you truly need, especially in these high leverage situations that the Bears seem to find themselves in a lot. Um, they need somebody to come in to control the zone, honestly, and get the ground ball, get the outs, get out of the inning, and get your offense back out there.
And because he's running a sinker slider combination, a lot of balls go on the ground. He's getting his Ks, but a ton of the balls that are put in play are hit on the ground for this guy.
Sinkers are just disgusting
Well, he's
pitches.
throwing it at almost 100 miles an hour.
Exactly.
And oftentimes is throwing it over 100 miles an hour with movement. That's bananarama.
And he's very accurate.
Yeah.
How many strikeouts did he have last year in a reliever role? 66. That's insane.
1 per inning average.
Insane.
Yeah. The other thing that's also insane is for his breaking pitch run value. Thank you, Baseball Savant, for letting me dive into your website. He's in the 98th percentile for pitchers on the amount of movement that he hits on his ball. And here's the fun thing. Wasn't stoked when we traded Topa, but with Santos, when you look at similar pitchers, Justin Topa's at like the fourth most similar guy. And we could talk about Topa because we've seen him. This is the thing. There were a few other guys. I don't know who this guy is. I'm not going to be able to tell you jack about him, but I can tell you about Topa. Topa had good movement and on his slider and then worked the top of the zone. I think that's something that's worked really well for the Mariners. Well, but Topa was clocking in at like 94, 95. He's not clocking in at a hundo at the top of the zone with a devastating wipeout slider. And the crazy thing too, Gregory Santos is 25 years old. He has like 6 more years of club control. Him and Munoz are going to be a pair. You've got Brash there too. When you couple those guys and throw in the lefty combos of Spire and Sauce, I mean, this bullpen was very good, even when you look at the subtractions of Topa, Seawald from last year. Like, it got better. But welcome to the thing about bullpens. You can have a guy be immaculate one year, especially when they get a little bit older, and be poop the next. Drew Steckenrider comes to mind. Closer.
Yeah.
Part-time closer. Next year, with the team for 1 month of the regular season, and he's gone. So, but a lot to get excited for about Gregory Santos and the young core that you're building in that bullpen.
I just want to shout out something that broke today that's kind of really cool. The Mariners did pick up Cannon, Smith, and Jigba today, and I think it's dope that both JSN and CSN are in Seattle. That's super cool for me.
And I read a little bit from somebody, and I can't recall who, but they said that Cannon Smith and Jigba has been a guy that's hit at every level, but did not hit in the bigs at all last year. Granted, it was across like 40 plate appearances, but this is the type of guy that Jerry loves to get and ends up being productive for the team. One guy that similar profile, kind of that 4A type player, was seen as Mitch Haniger. And you saw what Mitch did in his first run with the team. Mike Ford is another guy that was on that cusp. Mike Ford just started hitting dingers. Yeah, granted, he didn't do much else for you, but he put the ball out of the park the last couple of years. Daniel Vogelbach, another guy that ends up being an all-star for the Mariners, and is still playing in the league and still DHing and making great commercials at the beginning of last year. So
Yes.
Jerry has a knack for finding these guys and finding a spot for them. I think I texted you earlier and said, hey, I think that we talked about it last week with Haggerty probably starting the year in AAA. He's obviously going to be the first guy you call up. And then you've got a battle between, I think, Cannon Smith and Jigba, Taylor Trammell, and Cade Marlowe for that next guy up if needed. And
Right.
you're going to need a lot of depth, especially with some of your position players, middle infield, corner infield, all these places, because you do have some injury prone guys that are
Yes.
slotted to play some pretty significant roles for this team.
Right. I just think it's a super cool story. Have both brothers in the same city, and potentially both playing at the major league. They're the professional level, in their respective sports. So super happy for him. I saw this account I follow on Twitter. It's at Mariner Muse.
Yeah, it's only one of the most popular Twitter accounts for us Mariners fans.
Yeah,
There's 4 different guys that run it.
right. And so I was seeing that, and they talked about this last week when he got
DFA'd.
released. Yeah, they were like, would be super sick to see him in the Mariners, like
And
that.
not just because his brother's here, because he's a pretty solid player, especially in the minors.
Right, and he got waived from the Pirates, who are also an ass team, who aren't going to give him the shots that he probably deserves. So,
one thing that I did today, because I had a rental car, I was having some car issues. On my drive to return that, turn on local sports radio, which I try not to do because I don't want to bogart their takes. I don't want to inadvertently steal information from them and kind of use it as my own. Try to be a little bit original. All of these episodes are made up by us. So, but one thing that I did see is they were talking about the Mariners, and Fangraphs came out with their projections for the year, and they had the Mariners finishing second in the division behind the Houston Astros. And as luck would have it, just like this shirt from Simply Seattle on Jerry DePoto's comment of we're just trying to win 54% of the games. Guess what their playoff odds are preseason?
54%, baby.
54%. And I just wanted to
Love
bring that
it.
up because I thought that was hilarious. They didn't bring up the comparison to the 54%. They just kind of gave the number. I'm like, oh, I'm so wearing this shirt tonight. And big shout out to Simply Seattle. They make some dope stuff. They just came out with like a new pilot, like retro pilot's hat that they've launched. Filthy.
Also,
Filthy.
their spring training hats this year, fire. I absolutely love it.
Give me a good teal any day of the week. I love
Yes,
it. Give me some teal.
sir.
Well, we can't just talk about hats and Simply Seattle the whole episode. Now you gotta get into our brains a little bit. So kind of talked about it at the beginning of the show. We've got the players that are new to this next year's team. There is a returning player on here, which will be very fun to do. But we went with guys that have been involved in a trade or a trade for a player on this roster or prospects that has had service time in Major League Baseball or is expected to for this team. And we also went with the free agent signings of Mitch Garver and Austin Both. But the list of guys that we will be going, tried to go in order of when they were acquired. So we've got Carlos Vargas, Zebi Zavala, Luis Urias, Jackson Coer, Mitch Haniger, Luke Rayleigh, Mitch Garver, Austin Both, Jorge Blanco, and Gregory Santos. So, Cain, we're starting at the top. I want your nickname for Carlos Vargas.
I'm gonna call Carlos Vargas this year. I'm gonna call him Los. Just a little short and abbreviation of his name. It works out. It's easier to say. I can get my son out there just chanting Los, Los, Los. He will. He's very good at copying.
Like if you're talking about Los and putting a group of people like Los Marineros, that means the Mariners too, like the group of Mariners. So maybe he can be Los for the masses.
There you go. I like it. Coach Red, what is your nickname for him?
Cheese. Dude, this guy brings the cheddar cheese up there on the mound. Fastball's averaging 99 miles an hour. His sinker clocks it at 98 miles an hour. And he's got a cutter, which I think they'll probably try to get more into a slider or a sweeper. That clocks in at 92. This guy is bringing the fire. He is bringing the cheese. So, Carlos Vargas, give me the cheese.
I like it. I like it a lot.
All right. The next guy we've got is Sebi Zavala.
All right. We're calling him Zahala. Big shout out to my wife for coming up with that. I don't know. It's just great. It's fun to say. So, me and the wife are going to be chanting it this year. Coach Red, what do you got for him?
Did you know that Sebi Zavala's actual name is Fernando Sebastian Zavala?
No, I did not.
Well, I didn't know that either. So the nickname I gave him was Bernie. And the reason I say that is because when you think about just like a generic office setting, like if you have a Bernie that works for you, like you know that he's there, but he's just kind of off in the corner because I think that Cal Raleigh is going to catch most of the games. They're gonna be like, "What's Bernie doing over there?" It's like, "Oh man, that's just Bernie doing Bernie things," sitting there like doing a crossword in the back, maybe a picture find on his days off, because the one thing is he's a good defensive catcher. I'll give him that, but he's not going to be getting any late game pinch hitting opportunities. So if he's not in the starting lineup that day, bro, just enjoy the moment, enjoy the scene of the game. You get a ticket, you get paid to be there. Congratulations to you, man. That's why I'm going to call
you up close and personal view.
Bernie.
I like it.
All right. Next guy we've got is Luis Urias and Cain. What do we got for Luis?
We got Dr. Pepper.
Ooh, 23 flavors.
Needs to stay healthy, but it's sweet when he's on the field. Like the numbers are there. Let's look at his last year in Milwaukee. Yeah, his last year in Milwaukee.
Last year of full health with Milwaukee. I think he banged out like 21 dingers.
Right, and had about 80 RBIs on a year. It's huge. So let's go with Dr. Pepper for Luis Urias. Coach Red, what do you got? Oh, jeez.
Finsta.
Yep.
Like fake Instagram. Finsta. Because I think that he's a little bit of a Finsta because he's had that one good year. The year before was all right. He clocks in with a pretty decent average, but it's not great across the board. And he has upside. He's still fairly young. I think he's clocking in at 26, 27 years old. So with that, you look at a Finsta account, you're like, oh, that's actually really cool. I like those pictures. Those are great, but they could be fake. And that's the thing that I think is going to be tough because I want to see him. It's been a couple years since he's been a healthy player. It's been 2 years since he's been that guy that has been a producer. This was a guy that was part of a big deal from the Padres to the Brewers, and then the Brewers got good life out of him. And then when they weren't anymore, they shipped in Boston oft injured and batted like $130 for Boston. So I think that you're intrigued by what you see when he's out there, but he's got to be right, and I haven't seen that yet. So I think that maybe he's trying to catfish us with this Finsta account.
That was good.
All right, the next guy we got is Jackson Coer. So where are you sitting at with Jackson?
We're just gonna call him Stilts because the dude is a giant, 6'5".
Those are some angles.
That is true. That's true. And usually tall pitchers do great. So let's have you seen the banana guy who's on stilts? He's great.
Yeah, his nickname is also Stilts.
That's true.
He's not that tall, but they're pretty close, I think. If you get them back to back during spring training, bring Stilts out He knows Cade Marlowe, I'm sure.
Hell yeah,
Bring him
dude.
out.
Hell yeah. All right, Coach Red, what do you got?
For Jackson Cutler, I have Outcast, but Outcast is spelled with the K.
Oh,
Sorry,
hey,
Miss
yeah.
Jackson. Woo! So got that little bit of Outcast, but it also kind of lends itself to his career so far. He was a former first round pick by the Royals and did not have great success with them. His DFA got picked up by the Braves, didn't play at all for the Braves because then he got shipped to us. So this is a guy that has been outcast from a couple teams. To be drafted in the first round, you got to have something special about you, right? So can the lab reharness what that is and turn him from an outcast from other teams to Andre 3000 and Big Boy and start making some bangers up here in the Pacific Northwest?
Yes, sir.
Told you I was getting creative on this. He didn't believe it. But all right, next guy we've got. He was gone, but now he has returned. Mitch Haniger. Kane,
Mitchie.
what do you got?
I got Mitchie Glitchy because when he's healthy, the dude is a cheat code. I mean, let's look at the last year he was in Seattle. The year we made the playoffs, 39 home runs. And then he spent 2 seasons injured. Like, when he's on the field, the dude is an absolute animal.
It was
He's
the
a
year
glitch.
before. It was the year before we made the playoffs because he was
Oh,
banged
yeah.
up for a long stretch. But he was one of the key factors on why we damn near made the playoffs.
Yeah, and then he also played well the year we made the playoffs, especially in the postseason.
Yes.
So, Mitchy Glitchy, I've always called him that. I love Mitch. He has been one of my favorite players. About halfway through the season after he was traded to us. So, Mitchy Glitchy, give me a full season out of him. Love the dude. Coach Red, what do you got for Mitch?
I also like when you're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna use the one that I've always used. Yeah, everyone knows it. And I was like, I've never heard that before in my life. Some of the main one that I've heard in the past is Hanimal,
Yeah.
which is a good one. Or as my fiance calls him, Mitch Power Thighs Haniger. But no, we're not going with that. So I'm gonna harken back. If you look back in the realms of the pop world, there was a young singer came out on the scene, was just that wholesome person you thought, right? That was not so much anymore. Britney Spears had her good hits, and then kind of went away for a little bit. Mitch Haniger kind of went away. Then
Sure.
when she started coming out with some more music a few years later, a little bit more edge to it. I heard a lot of "It's Britney, bitch." So guess what? It's Mitch, bitch. He's back.
That one was great.
That was my favorite one to make.
I
It
like
was
it.
tough because I've come to terms with Power Thighs. Not my favorite, but I've come to terms with it. So I've had
Are you
these
gonna
ones
hear
in
it
the
all
past.
year long?
I know, excited for that. But I wanted to make sure that I gave him something a little bit original. Welcome back. It's Mitch, bitch.
I like it. I like it a
You
lot.
forgot, but now I'm back. Except we didn't. All right. Next guy we got is Luke Rayleigh. Kane, what do you got for Luke?
I'm calling him Nuke Rayleigh because I think
Ooh,
this dude has hidden potential. And
that
I talked
is a great
to
nickname.
I talked to Day earlier about it, and he's like, that's pretty much what they call anybody that has ook in their name, right? And they play baseball. But I was like, but he's like, yeah, the dude hits the shit out of the ball. So I love Nuke Rayleigh. Coach Red, what do you got?
So just pulling up some stuff on Luke Rayleigh, trying to just learn more about him, hobbies and interests. But right on the first Google page, the first picture of him, I'm like, looks like a bigger guy. So look it up. Took me a while to go to a few different sites to get some of these stats. Clocks in at 6'4", 235, which is pretty big. 235 is a bigger player
It's a it's a
for
it's an
the
NFL
Major League
player.
Baseball, right? And a
Player.
guy that plays in the outfield, the guy that got 14 stolen bases last year, is very athletic, big guy at speed. So I just wanted to harken back to my initial thought when I saw that picture. It was beef because he's a beef boy, and
Yeah.
we like the beefy boys, right? The beef
Hey,
boys are where it's at.
shout out your other.
Yeah, shout out to Beef Boys Comedy. What's up? But he could be an honorary member, I think, because beefy. We
Hell
like
yeah,
him.
dude. Hell yeah.
All right, the next guy who already had a nickname that I thought was just fake that someone made it up, but it's his
Oh,
actual nickname. Might have
scarf
to get that
sauce.
changed. Mitch Garver, aka Garv Sauce. Don't know what it means. I'm hoping to learn this year. But Kane, what do you got for Mitch Garver?
I'm gonna call him Garvity. Um, I said, seems like the
Garvity?
ball, yeah, like gravity,
I'm getting
Yeah,
that now.
yeah. Like, dude, all I've seen this dude do when healthy is rake, and the ball just keeps flying when he hits it. Like, you know, there's no gravity when he hits the ball, so gravity it is. My wife liked that one, so
I
Coach
thought you were
Red.
gonna like go to the John Mayer song. I was like, this isn't making sense at all.
All right, Coach Red, what do you got for Garver?
I've got the undercover assassin.
All right.
The reason being, he looks like a pretty unassuming guy, and he has had some health issues. But when he's on the field and he's right, straight killer, dude. Like this guy is a heart of the lineup type bat when he's on the field. He's a guy that high average, good power numbers, high on base. This guy's he's hitting, I think career, he's at like a 250, 265 clip, which is pretty damn good in today's Major League Baseball. And the guy was at the heart of the lineup when healthy for the Rangers and was a key proponent to their success in the postseason. That's why you go get a guy like this. He's had postseason success. I think that was he the nah, it was Corey Seager, but he was probably the next most important guy because you had Adolis kind of banged up in that last series because this guy was nails, right? And
Yes.
so he's kind of that assassin where you just look at him and you're like, oh, just looks like another guy that I would see, but don't worry, he'll assassinate you.
Like it. I like it a lot.
All right, Kane. The next guy we've got is Austin Both.
All right. So I went a little out there on this one. I'm going to call him Austin 206. A little play off Steve Austin from you know, WWE
Wrestling.
wrestling. um, you know, and I just thought it was funny. I liked it. Kind of fits honestly because you see everybody like the Huskies and stuff. They're like, "Welcome to the 206." So hey, Austin Roth, 206 baby, let's go. Coach Red, what do you got?
It's a similar play. This is a guy that went to the University of Washington, and a lot of times, he's come back home. Now he lives here again. Sometimes when you go back to your hometown, you just see some guys hang around. It's like, oh, there's my homeboy from back in the day. So his nickname for me is Homeboy because I mean he's back in his old stomping grounds. This is the stories that you like to hear. You look at the guys, especially from this area. I mean, Blake Snell's trying to get on the team if he wants to take the hometown discount. They'll very much take him. But having Sauce back and his ability to connect with the Husky football program, Julio has really indoctrinated himself into this area since he's been with the team, signed since he was 15, 16 years old. But when you look at some of these guys, you know, it wasn't Patrick Boyd, the
Oh
pitcher
yeah,
that
Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd, where we brought him back. Great story. And then you get Sauce the following year. And now you got Voth, that's another guy. And, you know, he signed a free agent deal. You're expecting him to make this team. He's had starter experience. He can be that guy if you get an injury early on that you can kind of build up. He can be your long relief guy. And he's got a little bit of potential to morph into a little bit more of a high leverage guy. But I mean, sometimes when you go back home,
Hits
it's
different.
always good to have home cooking, right? Let's
Yeah.
hope that Austin Voth is cooking at T-Mobile Park. Boom. Next guy, Jorge Polanco.
I think this is my favorite one. I'm gonna call him Polongo because
Big on wordplays today. I see it.
yeah, the dude just hits nukes from both sides. I love it. Love switch hitters. This is a guy I've liked for numerous years. One of my favorite cards to use in MLB The Show. I love Jorge Polanco. Give me Polanco. Let's see all the dingers this year. Coach Red, what do you got for Jorge?
I wanted to do something that is also kind of a play on his name, but vastly different. Have you ever heard the song La Bamba?
Maybe.
Ba la 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 lamba. So my thing is, I wanted a kind of a nickname that I could stick with him when he does good things and kind of mix it with like the long goal in Spanish. So I've got pa la 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 lanco. So anytime he gets a big hit, oh, he smacks that double. You know, coming from my residence or when I'm at the game, it's gonna be pa la 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 lanco.
That's good. That is good.
I like that one a lot. But I saved the best for last. I think I might have came up with my best nickname for our boy Gregory Santos, but you get to go first. Lead us off. No pressure.
I'm gonna call him the Dominican Missile because dude hits 103. That's just insane. That is, not many pitchers can do it. There's only a handful right now that can actually do it. That's insane, man. Dominican Missile, give me that all day. Coach Red, give us your best nickname of the episode.
You'll need a translator for this because it's a Spanish nickname.
Oh, good thing you can tell me what it means.
I will, but I'll tell you what his nickname is, and it is Sucio.
Okay.
And what Sucio translates into English is dirty or nasty, because dang,
Okay.
that's what his pitches are, right? And
Yeah.
I was checking the because when you look on a translation site, you kind of get it could mean these 8 different things. So I texted one of the listeners who is a Spanish speaker, and I said, "What would you say that sucio means?" And he goes, "Dirty." And I go, "Yeah, I'm trying to do this for the episode tonight." And he's like, "You should say this about that guy." And I'm like, I'm gonna stick with Susie. I like that one a lot, but I told him I'd give him a shout out and let him know what his name means, the one that he told me that he should pick, and it is La Gran Verga. And you're probably wondering what that means. I mean,
Yeah.
as you can tell, I can speak a little bit of the Espanol, right? You wouldn't expect it, but here we are. So La Gran Verga means a hard ass MFer or tough. But like I said, there's multiple things. It could also mean a hard ass stick. So I think it also fits. So thank you, Edgar, for the translation and another fun nickname that's making Cain just choke himself away. He's losing it, ladies and gents. You gotta get closer. You gotta get closer to the mic. We gotta hear these laughs. This is what it was here for.
I'm crying.
Wow. So can't leave much more of this said here. Cain, you're pretty ecstatic about that nickname, I
That was
think.
funny. That was really
And
funny.
we would be ecstatic if you gave us a follow over on
Oh.
social media. You can find me, your boy Coach Red, on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real _ Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, bell notification or two. I don't care. Leave some comments, why don't you? Cain, where you at?
Find me on Twitter at Kane2406, on YouTube at Kane06, TikTok and Kick Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
And before we do the final sign off, Monday will be our first iteration of our mock draft series where we typically will do about 4, maybe even 5 this year. We'll see. But don't just get excited about mock draft. It's the return of Lefty France.
Yes, sir. Lefty's coming back.
You get the do it frickin' do it from the creator himself. So
That's true.
Tune
The
in, tune
OG.
in to next week's episode if you missed Lefty France. But as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.